Chevy Silverados. This particular one is a 2015 LTZ, pretty much top of the line for them. That's a sharp looking pickup, as you can see. And it is kind of a show truck, because as you can see here, it's got the short bed on it. It's not a full-size bed. It's more of a show-off truck than anything else. Look at the rims. They're not made for going through mud. But as you're going to see here, you can already see the quality's kind of cheap. Okay, that's on lock, that's locked, that's on lock. But look, you pull on it, nothing happens. You gotta jerk around. It's just cheaply made tailgate. I can feel the plastic already coming apart. 5 years old and the latch is starting to go. I know it's gonna snap off. I've fixed a bunch of these. Come on now, Chevy. This was a $43,000 truck when it was new and it's only 5 years old. Cheap plastic crap on the handles, it's a truck. Come on. Now when we check under the hood, it's got a nice V8 engine, which has 355 horsepower, but of course all that power comes at a price on a big heavy truck. This particular one gets about 15 miles a gallon in town, 19, 20 on a highway. Now as we check the interior, comfy truck, lots of room. Turn the key and yeah, it's still got a key, which I like. Starts right up, got all the electronic stuff, but it doesn't have that many miles on it. It's got 67,201 miles. And that small mileage and barely 5 years old, it's got a big problem. Got the AC on low, but it's just got room temperature air coming out of it. It's losing refrigerant. The customer filled it up and it lasted a few weeks and now it's blowing warm again. I made a whole video on this, you can watch it, but basically what I did was I emptied it all out with my recycling machine. I filled it back up again, put leak dye in it. Normally you'll see where the leak has come with a dye, but it didn't show anything till I got my sniffing machine out. It smells refrigerant leaks. That's a normal beep. When it beeps fast, it means there's a refrigerant leak. But as you can see there, it checks for other gases too. I just ate a couple of tacos and I guess they're outgassing from my mouth because it's beeping from that. But in this case, when I stuck it inside the AC dash, it started beeping, meaning that the evaporator inside the dash is leaking. Now it's bad enough that it's leaking. Due to their horrendous modern designs, this is a 15-hour job tearing the whole dash apart to replace it. It's well over, with parts and labor and everything, a $2,000 job on a vehicle that's just barely 5 years old. It's got 60,000 miles on it. To me, that's uncalled for. That is just poor manufacturing by GM. Like I've been saying, they don't make the greatest stuff anymore. Now it's bad enough that it's leaking, but in the olden days, the GM trucks, they had the evaporator here under the hood. I could change an evaporator out in about an hour. Not 14, 15 hours, 1 hour. But they decided to move it all inside. So you got to take the whole dash apart. And like I say, it's a 14, 15 hour labor job. And the cost of labor, the cost of parts, it'll be around 2,000 bucks to fix this stupid leak on something that shouldn't have leaked that fast. Again, here's my 94 Celica, 240,000 miles, old as the hill, still got the original evaporator, and still blows freezing cold. GM quality, it's not there anymore. Now this baby's got all the creature comforts. It's got heated and cooled electric seats, and when you go in the back, you can see the back seat isn't a joke. It's got a lot of space to sit in, a nice little area to put stuff in, cheaper quality and design. They didn't even have air conditioning system blown out here like the Toyota Sequoia I showed the other day. You're just getting the air from the front. They could have easily put vents in here, but I guess that would have cost them too much, or maybe they couldn't figure out how to do it. More interested in having an armrest that's got cup holders in it. Now you're not going to get stuck with this thing, because you can see here's the front end and there's the drive shaft on the right side. It's all-wheel drive, so you're not going to get stuck. In the back, it's got a big, beefy rear end here. Got to put oversized shocks on it. Got a big old spare tire under here. You know, it's a solid built truck. No arguing that. And as I say, when you climb inside, plenty comfy. It's a nice, comfy big truck. Traction control on or off, and you can adjust the pedals and stuff. You know, it's got a lot of creature comforts. There's no arguing that. So let's start it up, take it for a spin. Got the obligatory backup camera. Now it's got decent cornering for a big old pickup truck. We're not gonna have to wait for this guy who rudely pulled out in front of us. Isn't that typical these days? It's got some pickup, big old engine. Hey, it rides like a typical pickup truck, you know. You're gonna feel bumps. They're sloshed out by the weight and everything, but you see when we hit these bumps, it rumbles around. It's a pickup truck. It's not a Lexus or a Cadillac, you know, it's a pickup truck. But for a pickup truck, really, it's got a pretty smooth ride. Comfy enough when you're going straight, not hitting any big bumps. And if you're used to driving land yachts around like I did when I was a young kid, you kind of point and steer, you know. It's not the crispest of steering, but, you know, it's a big old truck. That's what it's going to act like. And like I said, it's got a pretty cavernous back seat, you know. Climb inside. It's not particularly cramped. This isn't a tiny little back seat. It's got plenty of room. But I do have to say, for almost $50,000 5 years ago, and this thing already needs $2,000 plus of air conditioning work on it, the quality just isn't there. As the old saying goes, chrome doesn't get you home. And really, chrome veneer is very thin. It's what lies under that veneer that's important. So when you consider what's under this veneer, I'm not very impressed with this. Hey, they could have done a heck of a better job for all that money. Ram trucks are selling an awful lot of them. Here's a 2019 a guy bought used. I'm going to show you step by step what shape it's in and what you get for your money. I'll start with the exterior. Yeah, it's a beautiful looking truck. Black and chrome. The interior, Longhorn. They're going for the Ford, you know. The Ford had their little country one too that they had with leather seats. Pretty much the same color, almost the same design, only it says Longhorn on it. We open the back. A lot of room. Hey, it's a luxurious truck, right? Since it's a double cab, it's got a shorter bed on it, and it's a 4x4. Now this has a big Hemi in it, a 5.7 liter V8. Averages around 19 miles a gallon. Okay, that's pretty good for a big heavy truck like this. You gotta face the facts. Big Hemi V8 seem to handle the active fuel management better, and in the case of this one, hey, it doesn't burn any oil, and as we can see, got 88,159 miles on it. So with that mileage, has anything gone wrong with the guy? Well, nitpicky stuff that came and went, and he didn't fix it. For example, a code for the stupid shutter in the front that opens and closes to get better gas mileage. It came and went. It had a code for the pressure sensor for the evap system, but that came and went. But the one big advantage of this truck is it lives, like me, in Tennessee. There is no emissions testing. So if he lived in an area where the check engine light comes on, you got to get the emission stuff fixed. You'd have to fix the evap system if the code came up. It's not on now. He says it comes and goes. You would have to fix that stuff. It could be a pain in the butt. In Tennessee, you do not care, as long as it runs okay. But if you live in an emissions area, you might think twice before buying one of these things. A lot of problems that can come up. You can spend a fortune on these stupid little anti-pollution things. It's just the way that it is. But in this case, he doesn't care. Interesting enough, he used to be a state trooper in New York. He fled New York State because he couldn't stand the taxes, moved to Tennessee, and he loves it. If he had this in New York State, he'd be spending a bunch of money fixing it so it would pass the stupid emissions test. Now, start it up, listen to it. So it sounds like a strong engine. Although I can hear the alternator whining at some point in time. The alternator bearing will go out, you have to replace the alternator. That's typical on Dodges, but maybe that's why they put it here on the top. It's easy to get to. So let's get my big old scan tool. See how this thing's held up? Hooking up the Maxxis Ultra while it's hooking itself up. I really like the dash. I gotta say it's nice. Black, chrome, silver, tachometer, temperature gauge. Easy to read, fuel gauge. And like I say, he's getting 19 miles a gallon for a big old truck like this. That's pretty good. I mean, four-wheel drive, it's got everything you want. It's got four-wheel drive auto, two-wheel drive, four-wheel drive high, four-wheel drive low, and neutral. You shift it with a flick of the wrist. I'm not a big fan of that, but a lot of cars are like that, just like they have electronic parking brakes, which I don't like either. There it is, the electric parking brake, a little bitty thing. Not a fan. You can hear when I pull it on. Made a little noise, then you push it off, and now it's off. Got the VIN number, 2019 Ram 1500. Now it's communicating. Gotta say, these leather seats are comfy. Look at the back room, nice armrest if you want. If there's only two people, you can have a bunch of stuff in the middle with an armrest. Cup holders, you can pop it up, throw another person back there. You're waiting for the data, I'll warn you something about Rams. This is a late model Ram, and the company is kind of a scumbaggy company. You gotta have special permission to access the data on these things. I'm a professional mechanic. I paid to be on these sites, so they authenticate me, and then I can access the data. As a regular person, you can't access this data because they're scumbags. They don't want you working on your own car. So it's another reason maybe not buy a Dodge. You're going to have to pay mechanics all the time to do serious work because you can't even access the data. Now, to me, that's disgusting, but for Chrysler, that's business as usual, ripping off their own customers. Stuff off, we'll do a topology scan, and here we go. Now, it has no trouble codes, so the trouble codes that he's getting for the evap and for the shutter grill, they're not coming up now. Maybe some kind of minor electrical fault where it comes on, goes off, comes on, goes off. But like I say, we don't give a crap. It runs fine. They don't do emissions testing. But if unfortunately you were in an area where you had to get all that stuff fixed to get it passed so you can register the car each year, you're screwed. You got to fix it, right? Now, in the case of this, as it stands this second, this would pass that test because there are no codes. So you would be able to get it inspected. But how'd you like to be driving to the inspection station, everything's fine, and then right before you get there, the check engine light comes on, then you know it would fail the test. So it is a rather major annoyance for those who live where cars have to be inspected for emissions every year in order to legally register and get license plates. Now, truthfully, this is a gigantic thing. If I was a private individual, I would not buy this vehicle just because they can't let you access the data on your own car. Unless you have a fancy tool, you register with some of these online companies, prove you're a mechanic. Absolutely ridiculous. This just shows that Chrysler is a scumbag company. They don't care about their clientele. All they want to do is rip you off. Now, in the case of this truck, the data is good, fuel turns good, all that stuff, but I have to be a mechanic to access this data. You can't. The only thing, it has historical code for a small evap leak, so we'll look at the gas cap. So this is probably leaking, but then again, as I said, the vehicle's registered in Tennessee, so we don't give a crap. And here we go. As you can see, it's a big smooth truck, you know, giant Hemi engine. It runs good, but like I say, if you can't even access the data, who do these people think they are? They just figure, oh, well, that's for your security so someone doesn't mess up your vehicle. Yeah, so they can rip you off and go to the dealer. It's ridiculous. Chrysler does this. Hardly any other car manufacturer did. They were thinking about it, but when they saw the bad feedback that people got about the Chryslers, you don't see Toyota, Honda doing this. You don't even see Ford doing this. They're not stupid. They don't want to chase their clientele away. A lot of guys want to work on their cars. If they can't, they're going to say, ha, sell it to somebody else. I'm buying one that I can at least access the information and when I'm driving. We'll go faster so nobody gets right behind us. There's somebody a little behind us now. We'll get to our little drag strip. On your mark, get set, go. Yes, it goes. Even though it has traction control, it did squeal a little bit, but you can see, hey, it's got the sound, nice pickup. And you notice in the tiny drive I've already done, the gas mileage went from 19 to 18 miles a gallon, and that was just driving at a few hundred yards at high speeds. Let's do that again. Here we go. And we're off. Nice pickup. They are fun trucks to drive. And now you can see it's dropping 17.9. You're not going to get 19 the way I'm driving it. Sticks in my craw that you as a consumer can't even access the data. Nice truck, runs good. Only problem was the evap leak, probably that stupid capless system. You'd have to buy the whole top parts, expensive, but he doesn't care. We live in Tennessee. They don't do emissions testing. Would I buy this vehicle? Now, as a mechanic, of course, I could because I paid for the license and I can access the data. You, as an individual, cannot. So, if I were you, I would not buy one of these things. Straight up. You can't work on your own vehicle. They won't let you. That's just total crap. It just shows the greed of a company. And as you can see when you open the door, Fiat Chrysler US LLC. That's all I have to say. Greedy Italian company that's now a greedy European Stellantis company. Stay away from these people. They're going to pull crap like that. Don't buy their products, and guess what? They'll go out of business in the United States, and maybe they can sell them to Europe to fools there that don't care. But here, we like working on our own vehicles. You don't give us the info. Okay, here we have a Jeep. It didn't start on, and we played with relays, and then it started up. But I think it was more coincidence because he did the starter relay, and it was cranky. There's obviously something going on here. It's got the codes for running too lean on both banks. First, we'll look under the hood. Ignore the rattling plastic. No, they can run lean for lots of reasons. Common is a vacuum leak somewhere where it's sucking air. So we'll make sure everything's on tight, which it is. Don't see any hoses that have fallen off. I don't particularly hear any vacuum leaks. There's nothing obvious. So I'm gonna have to look at the data, get out my big computer and analyze everything. you could have a weak fuel pump. First, we want to see what the actual codes are. Turn on the scan tool and start analyzing. I like it in here because it's 16 degrees outside and it's nice and warm inside. Now, even though this thing has 145,000 miles on it, the heat still works good. Intelligent diagnosis. And the magic wheel spins. Oh, knows it's an '07 Jeep Grand Cherokee. Flex fuel, it's a relatively complicated vehicle now. It can run on all kinds of different fuel. And in the case of this vehicle, I believe it is a fuel problem. Cars often will run lean because they're sucking too much air. But if the fuel pump isn't pumping enough fuel, they'll also run lean. And this is a very complex system on it because it's a flex fuel. Now you can see there's a bunch of reds. We're talking about running problems. You care about the radio, crap like that. What we're looking at is the main computer. You can see the fuel system is lean on both bank 1 and bank 2. So both banks are running lean. That generally means it's not a vacuum leak, because if it's a vacuum leak, one side is going to be leaner than the other. It's got to be something that affects the whole system, not a leak on one side of the intake or the other. Fuel pressure comes to mind to me. Often fuel pressure is low. This is a flex fuel. They have very complex systems that run by the fuel pump, how much pressure it puts out, what the computer tells it to do. In this case, you actually want to pray that it is the fuel pump and not the computer system that runs it, because on a flex fuel, that's really complex. Now look at the freeze frame. It happened when it was 203 degrees, but the battery voltage was only 9 volts. Interesting. And as we look further, it was adding 6% long-term on bank 1, but it's subtracting fuel on bank 2. Now this is making things really complex. You got opposite things going on. Now we're looking at another freeze frame, and still the battery voltage is 10.38. That is way too low. And we'll try another freeze frame. There's a lot of freeze frames on this. We're gonna check them all. Again, the battery voltage is too low. In this case, it was adding 27% on bank 1 and 30% on bank 2. That makes more sense. The fact that the other freeze frame was radically different. It's telling me something seems to be an electronic failure. We got low battery voltage. Once you get low battery voltage, all kinds of crazy crap can happen. Believe me, these cars are so complex. If they don't have full voltage, they'll do things that you couldn't imagine. Let's look at the last freeze frame data here. We're going to check them all. And in this one, the battery voltage is 10.07 volts. That's way too low too. We have the short-term fuel trim on both banks exactly the same. It's adding 26.55% at 30 miles an hour. So since it's showing bad battery voltage when it tripped, let's test the battery first. Put the positive on positive. You just put the negative on the negative and the positive on the positive, and we'll test it. 12 volts, battery capacity. Battery type, it's a standard battery called cranking. Now we gotta set it. At 0, it's 790. And at 32, it's 970. You gotta know the temperature outside. Well, it's about 15 now, so we'll guess like 820. So we'll set this at 820 and we'll start it. Well, the battery's great. It's 827. State of charge is 100%. State of health is 100%. So that's good. The charging system. Turn on all loads and speed up to 2,000 RPM. Now we'll turn everything off and we'll rev it up. We find out the battery's 100%. The alternator's good. Passed the ripple test. As you saw, it only had 10.7 volts when it tripped the code. So, what do we have here? Well, something that's very typical with Jeeps. It has a wiring problem somewhere where it's losing voltage between the battery and the rest of the car. It was running, it was going 30 miles an hour according to the data, so the voltage should have been 14 something volts and it was 10. So somewhere there's an electrical short on this thing. Typical for Jeep products. The owner's given me a great clue. When it didn't start, he went to the totally integrated power module here. He whacked it, then it started. Well, this is going to save us a lot of time. It's a typical failure on all these Jeep products. There's many parts integrated in there. That's why it's called totally integrated power management, right? When it's integrated like that, you got to replace the whole thing. The totally integrated power module on this thing is over $600, and it has to be reconfigured for the vehicle using a fancy machine like I have. Some guys will try rebuilt one. I've had very bad experience with them. They'll try used ones, ditto. It's a design flaw of these stupid Jeeps. It's just an expensive monstrosity. And of course, it's also a royal pain in the butt to be absolutely sure that's bad, because it is a module. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. And what happens is the insides of them just short out. And that's why it was only getting 10 point something volts. That also controls how much electricity the alternator's putting out. Everything today is run by computers, and we're just lucky that it gave me that data that showed when that code tripped, it had way too low voltage. And when it does that, the actual data you get from the sensors is meaningless. Because otherwise, well, not including when it didn't start, when you're driving it like now, get on a highway, run 65 fine, no problems at all. If this baby was running that lean, that it had to add 25% fuel, it'd be running like crap on the highway, and it isn't. Since the totally integrated power module is screwing up now and then, when it does, there's no saying what a computer will do. As you saw in that one time it was adding fuel on one bank and it was subtracting 50% on the other bank, which makes no sense at all. Well, it actually wasn't doing that probably at all. It was just, that's the weird data the computer was reading, since the stupid sensors have really weak power. They only use 5-volt reference signal, and they only use milliamps. So if the power from the battery gets to be too weak, you'll get observed data, which is what this one is doing. From a diagnostic standpoint, hey, it was great that he told me when he beat on that, then it did start, because otherwise we would have to go through the entire electrical system of the car, checking every stinking wire and every stinking sensor. And since this is a flex fuel vehicle, it's got more sensors than normal cars have, and any single one of them can short out. And if it shorts out, it's going to make the computer get weird data. It has nothing to do with the engine itself actually running lead. Those are ghost codes. It's just tripping those codes because the computer's confused by the data that it's getting. That shuts the case on this Jeep. It's a very common problem, these totally integrated power modules on it. Now, this thing runs perfectly fine otherwise, just once in a while it acts up. And the interesting thing is, it's been cold lately, and that's when it started doing this crap. He might find in the summer it won't do it at all because it's warmer outside. I once had a Ford like that in the winter it would act up once in a while, but heck, I was living in Houston, Texas, right? So it's never that cold for very long, and I got a bunch of cars anyways. But in the summer, the thing never acted up, and I drove it 5 years that way. And I sold it to a guy for $200, and then he sold it to a guy for $500 because it was the summer and it was still running good. So, absolutely have to have it. You don't have much money? What the heck? Go to a junkyard, try a used one. It's a gamble, but the used one's going to be by itself. They'll hand it to you. Get a flashlight, look around. Look on the bottom side. See if you see any burnt parts. If you see burnt wiring or smell burnt wiring, then don't say, no, this one's no good, I want another one. Or if you want to go halfway, they do make remanufactured ones. They got to guarantee them. So for a lot of people, that's a better deal. They'll go to AutoZone, O'Reilly, or someplace, get a remanufactured one, and it's got a guarantee. It doesn't work, they got to give you your money back. So that's another route that you can take. This one is just going to keep going and see how long it lasts. And if in the summer it doesn't, drive it all summer. Who cares? He's got another car. He can drive that in the winter and drive this one in the summer if he doesn't want to spend that kind of money to put a new assembly in. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.